Hey, welcome back to another episode of Get Uncomfortable. Appreciate you joining me here tonight. I apologize for the voice. I'm fighting off a cold and I don't feel too well, but definitely wanted to jump on here and put an episode together for you guys. We're coming off the heels of a really cool episode released with BPM Fitness with Gray Patino. If you guys haven't checked that one out, it's an unbelievable story that you definitely want to look into. Definitely want to check it out. I would love to hear your reaction on that. I mean, I won't give any spoilers, but it's really really cool to hear about him and how he's kind of used some really traumatic experiences and built a really amazing life. Um, Check out my hat, pretty cool. Hey, I if you want the full story, you can hit me up. But I figured, hey, if I was gonna buy a hat off some podcast guy online or anything like that, I might as well get myself one done. So one of one, I'm pretty excited, pretty meaningful to me. 22 on the front. For those of you that know me, you know the 22 thing. Get uncomfortable on the side. So looks pretty slick like this too. So it's I'm excited. So without further ado, I got an episode for you. Kind of an emotional roller coaster thing. Want to talk about birthdays. So like I said, let's get into it. So like I said, today is, I guess it's not necessarily an episode about birthdays, but maybe more about milestones and life and longevity and all the stuff that comes up when you celebrate a birthday. For me, I just celebrated my 37th birthday, and I've always really been indifferent about birthdays. This year felt a little different for whatever reason. To set the table for you, for whatever reason, it was, I don't know if I want to say emotional, but it felt weird. So 37, we ended up going camping to Moonshine Lake, which is a spot really near and dear to my heart. Honestly, as a child, I spent a lot of time out there with my family and stuff. Um, so I haven't been out there in years, but went out with the kids and my mom and my sister to Moonshine Lake. It was really, really a special time, and my grandma. So really a special time. Um, but yeah, I went for a walk one evening and just essentially trying to get steps in. And late one night, it was the night of my birthday. So it had been Saturday night, late Saturday night. Everybody was kind of getting ready for bed and stuff. It was probably 10 o'clock, and I just, maybe a little bit later, and my steps were low. And just like, oh, I'm just going to go for a walk and get some steps in. I ended up going for this really nice solo walk, kind of a little bit of a, tried to get into like an evening gratitude meditation walk type thing, and just be out. It was super serene, water was calm, moonshine, so it wasn't super super pretty, but water was calm and the ducks were out and stuff. So it was just a really nice spot. Sat up on the top of the hill there by the fishing dock, and just kind of looked out at the water and I kind of got in my own head a little bit and started thinking about, wow, 37, like, this is crazy, right? This is absolutely wild. 37, that went by really fast. And then I started thinking to myself, 37 is halfway to 74. And for whatever reason, that sent me into a bit of a downward spiral, right? 74, for some reference, the average male lives to be about 80 years old in Canada. 74, again, that's you got to have a lot of good fortune, a lot of health, and a lot of things going your way to have a comfortable life up to 74. And then it kind of, even saying it now, to be honest, it sucks. Like it feels weird to essentially think that you're midlife, halfway through your life, or potentially in that range is, obviously everybody wants to live to 100, but realistically, just to have those thoughts is can be pretty crushing. So I went down a bit of a spiral in thinking about it, and it really got me thinking about, man, this is definitely not going to be something that I'm the only one that's ever felt, right? It's definitely not going to be something that I'm the only one that's ever been sitting on my 37th birthday or 39 or 40th birthday and been like, damn, like, what happened, right? Um, and I'm blessed, and I'm very happy with where I am in life, and very happy with my family and my jobs and my all this kind of stuff, my home, my vehicle, all that material stuff. Everything's good. But I think, like many people, I get into a little bit of a trap, and naturally, I guess one story for me would be, I told my mom, I don't know how old I was, probably 25. And I remember very clearly telling my mom that I was going to own 5 houses by the time I was 30. Now, I'm sure you know where this is going. I'm 37 and I don't own 5 houses, right? I've done other stuff. I do have a rental. We got our house, and I've bought and sold rentals and got a company and different things. But the fact of the matter is, I set an expectation and I did not hit it, right? It's kind of like that. I want to retire by a certain age, and I got to pick up the pace effectively. So um, I think it was just a really interesting weekend for me, and did a lot of reflecting after that that evening, just as to what that actually means. And I just kind of wanted to break that down. So, I mean, for me, it was a lot about the nostalgia of being there. I spent so much time. I spent a lot of birthdays out at Moonshine Lake. So for me to be back, it was just kind of a bit of an emotional thing that I was going through. And then just digging into and kind of thinking about, you know, halfway, halfway there. My life is halfway over. Turn a bit of a celebration to a lot of reflection. So in that reflection, I think one thing that stands out to me is you can kind of reflect at birthdays, anniversaries, any big numbers that kind of feel like a bit of a disruption to your autopilot life, right? For me, 37 wasn't even that. I think it was something else, just being out there. But being there and kind of thinking about that half through my life, kind of really struck me, and I really thought to myself, like, am I where I want to be, right? In a lot of ways, I've surpassed my expectations, right? A lot of smart people that I've talked to have said you can drastically overestimate what you can do in a year and drastically underestimate what you can do in 10 years. I don't know if that's the actual quote, but that's how I remember it. And so for me, looking back, if I look back 10 years ago, there's been some major shifts, right? I'm so much further in so many aspects than I was 10 years ago, and I have so much to be grateful for. But it doesn't mean that gratitude is never ending and just rock solid all the time. So I think it really just kind of struck me that, it's okay to reflect and be a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed, but strive for more. But I just found it was something that hit me so hard in that situation. I really wanted to get it out in the open and kind of say, like, we're all in the same boat, whether you're 35, 25, 45, there's going to be those emotions that come up. And so I kind of tried to flip that a bit, right? So really since then, and this is a few weeks ago, and lately since then, so I could have went two different ways from that, right? I could have just like got home from that camping trip, hit my bed, shut the windows, and just slept for a week. But I really kind of spun the other direction and really tried to practice a lot more gratitude. Um, One thing that I try and do every once in a while, and try and do more lately, is take my time when I look in the mirror and just look at myself. It's a Mel Robbins thing, I think, where you kind of just look and you kind of like appreciate who you are, appreciate who you've turned into. Because although 37 went by really, really quick, I've grown a lot, developed a lot in that 37 years. And in a lot of ways, I'm very, very proud. If I would have the, the 12 or 15-year-old boy out at Moonshine Lake, looking at me where I'm now, I know he'd be very proud, right? I'd be very proud to explain where we're at. And yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to say it, and I just realized when I was recording this one picture, and I don't know if other people like this, but one picture I had in my mind, kind of a negative self-image picture, is very clearly for me was a photo that was taken of me as like I don't know, like a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy swimming in Moonshine Lake. And I can't believe I just said that in this, but like, so if I'm looking at that, if I'm picturing that 13-year-old boy kind of looking at a lens at me now, he's smiling from ear to ear. So I think it's really, really cool to just take the time and reflect. And that's definitely not something that most people would talk about, and definitely not something that people would share in a format like this. So I think it's just really, really important to take the time and reflect, and just recall and think about how, life's moving fast, but it's so crucial to just take a few moments and really reflect on where you're at, what you've accomplished, and be super positive, right? We had some great conversations in a meeting today at work where there was some negative things that had happened. It's real estate can be tough even in very busy times. Real estate has a lot of challenges that come along with it, and we had a very good conversation among some of my peers that we have so much to be grateful for. Right? There's so many things that as much as we lose um, flexibility in some certain situations, we gain it in others. Right? As much as we take on financial risk in a commission income, we gain financial benefit in other ways, right? So there's so many things to be grateful for, and I think it's just really cool and super important to surround yourself with people that are like-minded and really have a similar mindset when it comes to that gratitude practice. A little bit of a plug here for gratitude practice again, and like the agents that I coach at the office here know that I'm always going to harp on journaling. It's so crucial, and I think when I'm at my best in so many parts of my life, I'm journaling, and I can attribute a lot of that success to journaling. Getting those negative thoughts out of your head onto paper, it really gives a lot of relief and kind of a sense of you're just taking them out of your head and putting them somewhere else, right? And it clears up a lot of space for that positivity, especially when you follow up. If you had a bad day, you write it down, and then you continue on with, okay, but what was good, right? What was good about today? Speaking of what was good, so in this thing in the last couple weeks, I've really been focused on reflecting on my life and on my age and what I've accomplished and what I'm still going to accomplish and all these cool things. And there was really cool couple things that happened. I didn't actually know I was going to be recording this episode today. This kind of came as a bit of a last minute idea, I would say. But when I thought of it, it hit me so hard, and I was like, I got to share this with some people. And then what happened? I was driving around picking up I was putting up a for sale sign, picking up a sold sign. So pretty good day. All right. I was picking up some lock boxes along the way. My throat is absolutely killing me today, so I had to stop and get some hauls before I had some Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So ripping around my truck, and I was going up the road, kind of a little bit of a road on the outskirts over by countryside, south and north there, and there's a little bit of a paved walkway, and there was this, older gentleman. I would have to say he was 80, right? Quite an older gentleman. And I seen him, and he was driving on one of those motorized scooters. And we're not talking about like one of those cool Vespas that the hipsters have. We're talking about like the scooters that had the basket in the front, like you have to get at Walmart if your legs are broken. And this little boy, he was going and he was ripping on the scooter, and I'll never forget it. And I'm gonna do this because this is what he was doing, and he had his hat backwards, and it was like an old farmer's hat, and he was just like grinning ear to ear, and he was flying down this sidewalk, and he was weaving in. I saw it, and he was weaving in and out of construction cones, and hat backwards. Just I assume it was so he didn't lose it in the wind, but he was loving life, and I really reflected in that moment and just like, man, I'm 37 and I'm over here whining that my life is almost over. And this guy is probably 87 and he is just living life to the fullest. So it was just a really good reminder for me. Um, yeah, just a bit of a reflection and reminder that, you know, there's a lot of life to live and there's a lot to live for, right? Family, business, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that fills your cup. And then just seeing that today, just seeing that guy just get the most joy out of the simplest little things. And I've just found really lately, after my birthday, it's been a little bit easier for me to focus on the little joy and the little simple things. Um, you know, we went on a bit of a holiday since then, sitting on a beach at Sylvan Lake, just really enjoying Alberta, right? Like we've never been to Sylvan Lake, so really enjoying like a part of Alberta where you don't typically think of like Alberta as being tropical, but we had beautiful weather. I got a bad sunburn, and we sat on the beach and we played in the water, and then the one day I went with my oldest Cadence, and we went on the big wee bit, I think she called it, or it's called. It's like a big bouncy castle. There was probably like 200 people there. It was super packed, but it's like a big bouncy castle in the middle of the water. You pay way too much to go play for an hour, and it's super hard. And my toes were all like rug burned after, but it was so fulfilling. It was so fun, and just the connection that I built with Cadence in that situation. Like we didn't need to be on a $60,000 boat. We didn't need to be, doing this big grandiose holiday. As much as I still want those, like I would love to have a nice boat. Who wouldn't? I would love to go to Bora Bora. Of course, why not? But to be able to sit back and say, look, I'm doing pretty damn good. I may not be where I want to be in all aspects of my life, but this is where I am now, and I should be damn proud of it. That's really where I've been, and yeah, and just focusing on that, and then just really thinking about that old guy on the scooter today, and one thing that kind of came up to me, I don't know where I heard it, but the difference, like instead of focusing on the years left to live, focus on the life left in those years. And seeing that guy on that scooter with his hat backwards, ripping through those cones at probably 87 years old, really reminded me of that. And just to say it again, because it's something that I've been really living by lately. Don't focus on the years left to live, but focus on the life left in those years. And realistically, as I kind of processed that and kind of just dug into the meaning of life in a sense. And when I say meaning of life, I don't mean like there's one absolute universal answer to what is the meaning of life. I mean more of like focusing on the events and the relationships that you build and the events that you see and experience through your life and the memories you can create. Sounds corny, but those core memories, right? That bouncing on that wee bit thing in the water was an absolute core memory for me and Cadence. Like it's something I'll never ever forget, and I think it's just very crucial to keep thinking of that, and not to focus on that as like, okay, I'm 37, I got 37 years left. Not to use that as fear, but kind of as time awareness that can create some urgency, I guess, without debilitating you and scaring you. Because, I mean, realistically, sometimes we all need to look in the mirror and we all need to say, where am I at? What do I want? What do I need to do to get there? Whether that's reflection, gratitude, motivation, whether it's working more or working less. Sometimes it takes that bad term, but come to Jesus moment and just kind of say, where am I at, and what do I need to do to get there? And choosing that, if your life is half over, then what are you going to do with the rest of it? And sometimes it is just chilling. Maybe it's taking some time off. Maybe it's just reflecting more. Maybe it's journaling more. Maybe it's just focusing on the relationships you have, reaching out to an old friend that you haven't talked to in a long time. Maybe that milestone is something you needed to reach out to somebody that really needed to hear from you, or that you needed to connect with again. So I think that's just very, very important. So whether it's a milestone like a birthday or anniversary or something else, I got kind of 3 questions that I was going to ask you guys, and I kind of figured it'd be fun to give you my answers just to show, because, um, it's easy to ask the question, but sometimes it's hard to give the answer. So at this point in my life, I really want to focus on the gratitude side. Excuse me. So what am I super proud of? Right? What am I proud of that I've accomplished? And for me, there's a lot of things that really stand out. I'm very proud of my business. I'm very proud of my health. I'm very proud of my family. Very proud of how I am as a husband, as a father. I have a lot that I'm very proud of, and I think it's one of those things that, um, I'm proud that like I can juggle all this, and sometimes it's very overwhelming for me, but I'm super proud that often when I'm overwhelmed, I can adjust and focus and get aligned and keep moving forward. And it's not, I've learned a lot of how not to get debilitated and how not to just be paralyzed with fear. So I'm proud of how I handle all that. The next question would be, what am I ready to leave behind? So complete counter to that would be, I feel a lot of pressure, and I put a lot of pressure on myself. And to me, this last few weeks since celebrating my birthday has been helpful. And I'm not saying I'm fixed, but it's been helpful in kind of putting some of that pressure behind or to the side and saying, look, sometimes things take time. Maybe I haven't accomplished everything I've wanted to accomplish by this time in my life, but I'm doing pretty damn good. And I'm going to keep trying. And sometimes it's a bit of a slow burn. Sometimes things come slower than you expect. But I'm sure I'm not the only person that has experienced sometimes goals don't get achieved as quick as what you'd want them to, right? Like sometimes that's just life. So I think for me, I'm I'm ready to leave behind the constant feeling that I am behind, because that's been something I've struggled with a lot. And it seems like the more success I find in any avenue of life is the more I feel like I'm behind. And maybe I've shared it with you guys before, but I've had a couple of people say to me, one in particular, I am very, very good at moving a goalpost. Like I am very good at achieving something, whether it's a dollar value in business, body weight, body fat percentage, um, running 5K, running 10K. I'm very, very good at running 10K and then saying I should have been able to do more. I'm very good about hitting a goal with business and saying, but next year I need to do more, and not taking that time to celebrate. So I'm truly ready to leave that behind and really just focus on gratitude and celebrate that, and not to celebrate that in a sense to just be complacent. I'm not satisfied, but I'm happy with where I'm at, and I'm going to continue pushing forward out of a mindset of like happiness and love for myself, and not a mindset of like um, hate for myself, or dislike, I guess. So, and the third question here, and this is a heavy one for me. If time wasn't an excuse, what would I start today? And I say it's a heavy one for me because I even wrote down an answer, and now I'm sitting here thinking about it again. I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty good about not having time as an excuse, but realistically, I really put a lot of pressure on myself to accomplish certain things by certain goals or deadlines. And I think if time wasn't an excuse, I would just really focus on doing what I can without the pressure of feeling like I didn't make it because I didn't hit the timeline, right? Go back to my story about me, um, after I passed 30, and there was a big part of that time after I passed 30 where I just kind of like, I didn't worry about buying a rental property because I missed my mark, right? Or, I had for fitness for a long time, it was really bad at 35 for some reason, but I was like, at 35, I'm going to be in the shape I want to. And then when I wasn't, I kind of just fell off the map. And I'm like, well, 35 now, what do I need health for? What do I need to look better for? All that kind of stuff. But I think really just keeping in mind that time doesn't have to be an excuse. And even though you haven't accomplished something yet, doesn't mean you can't. And there's so many stories that we've talked about of people just accomplishing so much later in life. I think it's just wonderful. And I can honestly say, for me, it's kind of hard to say, but for me at 37, um, life is just so much better than it was a few years ago, right? And I didn't even know that could happen. So I thought I was kind of on the downhill, but here we are. And I know for a lot of people, if you're 50 and you're listening to this, you're going to think I'm an idiot. But at the end of the day, everybody goes through these waves and everybody goes through these things. And that's why a lot of times people at 75, 80, 85, or, you get that maturity. I don't remember the stat. I should have pulled it up. But the happiest people are, I think it's over 50. And it's because it's that realization, like, time is scarce. Nobody knows how long they have, and you better enjoy it. And there's a bit of a shift that happens there as you get a little bit older. So keep in mind, um, milestones aren't just markers in time, they're reminders that the fire doesn't burn forever. So instead of using those and getting just debilitated by them, just use those as a little bit of a motivator in saying, what do I need to do? How am I going to do it? And make a bit of a game plan. Whether you're 37 or 67 or 87, there's still a lot of time to have gratitude. There's still a lot of time to build what you want to build. Whether you want to start a podcast, whether you want to start a new job, you got all the time in the world. And it doesn't mean you have to have these pressures of doing things by a certain time. So, make sense? I don't know. Does it? Does anything make sense? No, I'm just kidding. That was kind of a unique one where a bit rambly for me, but just something that was very near to my heart right now. I don't know if that made sense, but it feels good for me to share it. Something that I've been struggling with a little bit, and I got a lot of friends that I've talked to about gratitude and stuff like that. And I know I'm on my own gratitude journey. I think it's uncomfortable to bring up that I'm not where I want to be, but at the same time, I would imagine there's a lot of us out there that don't feel like we have accomplished all we need to accomplish. And just because I'm 37 and not 34 anymore, doesn't mean I have to give up on everything, right? So there's a lot of time left, and use those milestones, use those dates, use those anniversaries, whatever they are, not as not as like a, you know, a countdown to the end, but more of like a reminder of how far you've come. So, okay, I don't know. This has been a great journey. I had a couple people reach out to me over the last couple weeks. I just want to say I really, really appreciate that. I feel like I say this every time, but those messages, when you reach out to me and kind of, I had one the other day that, you know, got back into running after listening to some episodes, seeing my running journey. Had one that got back into lifting, one that had a difficult conversation with somebody. So there's so many things that we can all just learn and focus on getting uncomfortable and get so much benefit from it. So you guys are hearing it. I really appreciate you being along for the journey. This is super fulfilling to me. Yeah, and I can't wait to keep going. So next one you definitely want to check out is that we got a Jonathan Fortune episode. He's Theragen Counseling. Really, really cool guy. We did some really crazy stuff. We did a bit of a session after, which I'm not even sure if I'm going to release, but definitely check out 2 weeks from now. Jonathan Fortune. Yeah, really good with internal family systems and stuff like that. So really good discussion and conversation about talking to therapists. And I shared a lot about my journey in going through therapy and getting a counselor and stuff like that and how that's impacted so many parts of my life. So definitely an episode you want to check out. Thanks again. Really appreciate you joining me tonight. Have a good night. Keep getting uncomfortable. Peace.